Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to the funeral services for Yvonne Friedman. Zichrona Livracha. May her memory be a blessing. My name is Dean Stoddard, and I'll just get this out right up front, in case it was not abundantly clear. I am not a rabbi. The only reason that I am standing here is because I have had the great fortune of loving this family for most of my life. And perhaps the misfortune of being the only other person in the room when we were asked who would serve as master of ceremony for this service. I'm kidding, of course. It is an immense honor to be with you and this family in their time of need. We come together today as a community of colleagues, neighbors, old friends, new friends, and family. We may not all know each other, but we are here united in our shared shock and grief for the loss of a generous and active leader in this community, a friendly neighbor, a loyal friend, a devoted sister, a loving mother, and a beloved wife. My heart is broken for this family. But it is a grief that is somewhat tempered and balanced by the sense of gratitude that I could count Yvonne as my friend for over 40 years. I know that all of you share in that sense of thankfulness. We also share a common purpose today, yes, to grieve. And perhaps find some solace in the fact that none of us are alone in that sadness. We also want to fondly remember Yvonne and celebrate her for the joy and the love that she brought into our lives. To that end, our service this morning, during the service, I will ask a few of us assembled here to come forward and share a remembrance. We will also offer a few readings. They're intended to help those of us who may be struggling to put the heavy ache that we are feeling into context. And in so doing, perhaps lighten that burden if only a little bit. So to begin, I'm going to start with a little bit of both. As some of you know, Yvonne was quite fond, dare we say, a tiny bit obsessed, with the British royal family. Her knowledge of all things royal was quite profound, in fact. And if you knew Yvonne, then you knew full well that she mastered the facts. And indeed, when she engaged in a friendly debate, as she and I often did, then her opinions quickly became fact. You'll have to get the full story from Dave and Lois Winker, her dear friends, and next-door neighbors for the past 3 decades. But the gist of it is that Yvonne was presented with a patch of earth about a square foot in size of a remote castle in Scotland, thereby entitling her to be called Lady Yvonne, placing her in the royal line for the British crown, in fact, behind about 4,000 plus other contenders. I'm quite certain that Lady Yvonne was quite amused was very pleased to be a royal herself. Therefore, it seems fitting and not in any way irreverent to borrow the first words that were spoken at the recent funeral for the Queen of England as a prelude to a moment of silence to allow you to reflect or to reach out to God as you may wish, praying in your own tradition. And I have taken the liberty to only very slightly modify these words to fit this occasion. In grief and also in profound thanksgiving, we come to this place where remembrance and hope are sacred duties. We gather from across our community and nation to mourn our loss of Lady Yvonne, to remember her long life of selfless service, and ensure confidence to commit her to the mercy of God. With gratitude, we remember her unswerving commitment to a high calling over so many years as Queen of the Friedmans of Cherry Hill. With admiration, we recall her lifelong sense of duty and dedication to her people. With thanksgiving, we praise her constant example of faith and devotion to her community and friends. With affection, we recall her love for her family and her commitment to the causes that she held dear. Now, in silence, let us in our hearts and minds recall our many reasons of thanksgiving, reflect on or pray for all the members of her family, and commend our Lady Yvonne to the care and keeping of Almighty God. I would now like to invite Kathy and Greg Pearson to the podium to share a brief remembrance of Yvonne. Kathy is a longtime friend of Yvonne and her family, and her husband Greg is a close classmate of Carl's from our band of brothers in Company B1 at West Point.
As Dean said, known Carl for 44 years. We were roommates our very first semester at West Point, and known Yvonne for slightly less than that. And very importantly, the Friedmans, the Pearsons, and the McCormicks who are here today. We're all tailgate buddies too up at West Point, and the fall season kind of revolves around our tailgates. And we just had a great one last weekend, and I'll speak more about that. My wife, Kathy, who's known Yvonne for probably about 35 years, she'll speak first, then I'll have a few comments after that. Thank you.
Thank you all for, and Carl, for allowing me to speak. Greg's going to talk about what Yvonne meant to us as a couple. I just wanted to share a couple of things from a woman-to-woman perspective, our conversations one-on-one across the years. The first thing that I want to share is how fiercely she loved her family, and especially her daughters. She absolutely, I know you all know that, but she really, really, really talked about you incessantly, your accomplishments, your dreams, your hopes. She loved fiercely. The second is, Yvonne was such a loyal, caring friend. As a friend, she of course would always ask about our children, but she wouldn't just ask about our children. She'd say, now Sarah and Phil, I remember Sarah worked for this company 6 years ago. How's that going with that boss that she didn't like? Like, how do you remember this, right? She remembers the details. She remembered the details. She cared. You can tell. The third thing is the conversations I would have with Yvonne. She was so well-read, so informed, and no topic was off limits. We talked about politics. We could talk about spiritual matters. We could talk about our personal issues. We could talk about current events. And I just want to share our final conversation that continued via text until Tuesday morning. As Greg said, we were together for 3 full days, lots of meals together this past weekend. Had a lot of time to share. I'm so thankful for that. And we have both Carl and Yvonne had just come back from a cruise in Europe, and so had Greg and I, a different cruise. By the way, Carl, I know I'm so blessed and so thankful that you all had that time, right? They had a great time, as evidenced by the fact they showed me a photo of them posing with one of the bartenders on the ship. If you have a picture taken with the bartender on the ship, it was probably a pretty good trip. So it was, they had a wonderful time, and I'm so thankful for you all that you did. But so we were just swapping stories about our trip, and I said to Yvonne, Yvonne, I've seen these brass tiles in various cities in Europe, and now I sort of look for them. They're on the sidewalk in front of residences honoring people who passed away during World War II and the Holocaust. And I just was wondering if you knew anything about that. Well, that was a silly question, of course, right? And she proceeded to share with me not only Stolperstein, I think, or these stumbling stones, the whole history of them, what it means to people. I knew she would know, and she continued, and even afterwards, after we left the tailgate on the weekend, and it's Sunday, and Monday, and even Tuesday, she's sending me pictures of her family members. She's telling me more and more stories about it. She's telling me stories about her family. She really cared that I was interested and really wanted to inform me. I mean, that's just who she was. You could talk about anything with her. She was fiercely loved her family, loyal friend, caring friend, and just a great conversationalist. Greg will share now some of our collective thoughts.
One of Yvonne's most endearing qualities was her thoughtful and kind actions. Yvonne was a giver of herself, whether it be a keepsake, a memento, a card, a note, or even a text message. She invested considerable time and energy finding the perfect gift or the right words for the occasion. She did nothing randomly, nor obtained her cards or her gifts on the spur of the moment at the local Hallmark card store. She gave when it was unnecessary and unexpected. A few examples personally. In 1983, a number of us were stationed in Germany, and Carl and Yvonne were kind of the married couple, so they kind of took a few of us single guys under their wing. They invited for the holidays myself, our late dear friend Mike Peppers, and Paul Calvos. Mike's widow's here today, and Paul's son's here today representing his family. So they invited us over to their house, and what they had for each one of us was a nice little beer stein with our name etched in it. I love my dear friend Carl, but I know he had absolutely nothing to do with it. So that was pure Yvonne. That was the first little Yvonne gift that I got over all these years. Every year for our tailgate, she would give me a host gift. And just a week ago, this past Thursday, she gave me a beautiful woven basket, black, gray, and gold woven basket with a West Point crest in the center of it. And she told me she had looked for hours on Etsy to find just the right gift for this year. I mean, that's what she did. As you all know, if you've been over there, the Friedman house has all sorts of plants, pictures, knickknacks, family heirlooms, centerpieces, etc., tastefully distributed throughout the house. And once again, that's Yvonne's hand, all through the house. I received the following note from Yvonne last Sunday, 9:25 p.m., following the celebration of our 40th reunion at West Point. Tailgate hosted, like I say, by us, the Friedmans, and the McCormicks. This was Yvonne's voice. Thanks again for everything you did and coordinated to make yesterday so special for all. You were truly the tailgate meister, and we so appreciate the passion and hard work you throw into the Army football experience. Hope you were able to rest and relax today. The rest of the season will be a piece of cake. Take care, and see you soon. A couple of things about that note. Number one, it was classic Yvonne. It was kind, it was thoughtful, and completely unnecessary. So I would encourage you, if you still have a note, a card, a little gift from Yvonne, keep it, treasure it, and every time you take it out and look at it, remember her fondly. Dina already talked about Lady Yvonne, and that it was one of, I think, Yvonne's funniest. She had a quirky passion for the British royal family. Truly, she was the most knowledgeable person and well-versed non-British subject that I knew who followed the House of Windsor and Queen Elizabeth in particular. Yvonne could tell you who was married to whom, who their kids were, and what their royal titles were. Me, I really didn't care, but Yvonne knew that. She could tell you who was 12th in line for the crown. I have no idea who's 12th in line for the crown. And more importantly, she could tell you what the difference is between a baron, a duke, and a marquis. Don't know. Knowing her passion, I would often engage in some playful banter with Yvonne. And just make some outlandish statements to her, just to kind of provoke her a little bit. I'd say things such as, the modern age has no use for a royal family. Prince Charles is a wimp, and he should be skipped, and the British people should go ahead and vote on who the new king should be. And my personal favorite, and for those of you that know Yvonne and her strong opinions, I told her Meghan Markle is the best thing that's ever happened to the House of Windsor in hundreds of years. Well, these statements would evoke a brief, very brief moment of silence, accompanied by an eye roll, and then a spirited discussion on why I was wrong in her impassioned defense of the monarchy. Yvonne was rather set in her views of the monarchy. We recently returned from a trip to London, as Kathy said. We asked Lady Yvonne whether she wanted anything, and her only request was a £5 note with Queen Elizabeth's picture on it, because it would soon be changing the currency, and happily we were able to give that to her last weekend. This past week has been surreal for all of us. The suddenness of Yvonne's passing has left us shocked, dazed, saddened, and numb. Yvonne would probably say that a period of mourning is appropriate, but she would not want anyone to labor in despair. She would encourage everyone to be a bit more thoughtful and kinder in how we engage with others and extend ourselves to those less fortunate. If we do that and follow her will, then her memory and legacy will be with each of us forever. Thank you.
Reva Budman is another longtime and very dear friend of Yvonne's here in the local community. Reva?
I'm so incredibly honored that I was asked to speak today. The past few days have been paralyzing for me. I am truly humbled, touched, and grateful for the precious time Yvonne was in my life. Yvonne taught me so much. She always knew what to do in any situation. She was incredibly caring, confident, and never, ever turned down the chance to help or get involved if she could do good. In the Jewish religion, mitzvah is a good deed. Conscious acts of empathy and kindness. That was my Yvonne. From the first time I met her, I watched her, and I learned from her. She was always giving of herself to others. She did this with pure joy, enthusiasm, and grace. I was always struck about how Yvonne was so caring about me. We were on one of our trips to West Point, she loved West Point, and we got introduced to West Point to the tailgating parties, which, boy, did we have a blast. And at that tailgating party, there was lots of food. Well, I have celiac disease, so eating for me was limited at this kind of party. Who do you think made sure there was food for me? I didn't even worry about me. Of course, Yvonne opened up the trunk, and there in the trunk was tons of food for me. There was cookies, there was salad, there was whatever you could think of. She was a true menschess, if there's such a word. Yvonne, Carl, my husband Alan, and I would do some traveling together, and we always had so much fun together. She'd always send me videos that she and Carl made, and they were hysterical, on how to pack my clothes and in packing cubes. She'd be on this video and she would show me correctly how to fold my clothes, put them in the packing cubes, how to fold my jackets, how to put them in my suitcase. It was right out of QVC. I will cherish those videos forever. Yvonne and I called our get-togethers and vacays adventures. We were always looking forward to the next one. For our time spent at my shore house, or on the beaches, or shopping, or on shopping or vacation, Yvonne would text me, "You can pick your family, but sometimes you have special friends who become your family." That says it all. How true, my dear Yvonne, you will forever and ever be my sister. Elena, Jess, and Carl, I love you. You will always be in our lives. Elena, you, like me, share a very, very special day with your mom. My dad passed on my birthday too. Do not look at it as a bad thing, sweetheart. It is a day you and your mom will always share together. It is a gentle blessing. I truly believe, because I am so spiritual, that your mom will be with you always. But she is letting you, Elena, know that she'll be with all of you. But on your special day, she'll be right by your side, always and forever. Just like my dad is by my side on my birthday. You always have to remember that. You'll never be alone. I still believe, my dear Yvonne, that we will meet again. Until the end, I love you. As Carrie Underwood said so elegantly in her song, "See You Again," I will see you again. Oh, this is not where it ends. I will carry you with me, oh, till I see you again. Thank you, Yvonne, for being my friend and my sister. Till we meet again, I will always look for signs, and guess what? I saw a sign already. I did. I saw a sign already. I so believe. I love you, Yvonne. Thank you.
Travis Stoddard, my first son, has been a member of the Friedman's chosen family for his entire life of 33 years. Travis will present our first reading.
Thank you for asking me to speak, Carl, Elena, and Jess. I love you all very much. Just a small poem for you. This is "Remember Me" by Margaret Mead. To the living, I am gone. To the sorrowful, I will never return. To the angry, I was cheated. To the happy, I am at peace. And to the faithful, I've never left. cannot be seen, but it can be heard. So as we stand upon the shore, gazing at a beautiful sea, remember me. As you look in awe at a mighty forest and its grand majesty, remember me. As you look upon a flower and admire its simplicity, remember me. Remember me in your heart, your thoughts and your memories of the times that we loved, the times that we cried, and the times that we fought, the times that we laughed. For if you always think of me, I'll never be gone. Love you all.
Thanks, Travis. Travis's mom, Bobby Salvatierra, knew Carl while he was still a cadet, since she was dating another cadet, B1, me. She also helped to welcome Yvonne into the B1 family when they were married almost 4 years ago. Yvonne and Bobby remain steadfast friends as our children grew up together, and Bobby will share our next group.
Good afternoon. As Dean said, my name is Bobby, and I'm part of the Army Life faction of the gathered group today. Dean and Carl are company brothers from West Point, and they also happen to share a leap year birthday. This year, Carl and his fellow West Pointers from the class of '82 celebrated their 40th reunion. It's actually 44 years, as the really hard first 4 years don't seem to count. There are many friends here today from Carl and Yvonne's military family, which speaks to the depth of purpose of that shared experience of service to the nation. A lot of life has passed since then, and I'd like to briefly share a bit of it. I still have vivid memories of visiting Yvonne and Carl in Nuremberg in the early 80s. Yvonne and I talked about her work with Army families. She loved children, and she had a heart of service. She always served her community in some capacity, wherever she called home. I can see her standing in front of our home in Falls Church, Virginia, lovingly holding my new baby, Charlie, who's grown up now. And I felt so much joy being able to share the happiness with our best friends. The girls were wearing matching dresses, looking adorable. Yvonne always dressed them so beautifully. I recall with the pride and love that shone on Yvonne and Carl's faces as each of the girls read their Torah portions at their bat mitzvahs. Yvonne created 2 beautiful events for the girls as they entered womanhood. The house, the service, the food, everything from A to Z was perfect, as Yvonne was a master organizer. I remember how beautiful she looked those evenings. She was beaming and lovely. She truly was gifted with a mind for leadership and organization, from the family business to beach trips. All the I's were dotted and the T's crossed. Excuse me. Our families vacationed together many years. From the beaches of New Jersey, North Carolina, Thanksgiving with the B1 crowd, New York City birthday trips, cruises, even as far west as Oklahoma. Not exactly a vacation destination, But as you know, it's not where you go, but it's with whom you spend your time. My favorite vacation memory, and we have many, was Yvonne just wanting to hang out on the beach with the baby. Well, our baby is that redhead in the second row. We jerry-rigged a baby confinement facility there on the beach, and she would just want to sit there with the baby. Katie usually just wanted to be carried around by Carlo as he stood and the waves would hit him. Our families have decades of memories together, and we are one family. Our children grew up together, and our homes were full of joy and a lot of laughter. And that is immeasurable and irreplaceable. Yvonne was an incredibly strong woman, a friend to be counted on, not to sugarcoat advice, and always to be counted on to tell the absolute truth, which is an invaluable quality in a friend. Yvonne and I share an unbreakable bond. Over the span of nearly 40 years in our sisterhood, we have held each other up in our darkest times. Having the love of a trusted friend to walk with you, carry you when necessary, and celebrate with you as you come back into the light has been the most cherished gift Yvonne and I share. A lifelong friend like Yvonne is uncommon, and I count myself blessed to have been able to share the walk with her.
Mike Gittrick was one of our brothers in B1. Little did we know when we were thrown together over 44 years ago that we would be together still, an extended family that now includes our wives, our kids, even our parents. It's spread across this country, but ever ready to rally around one of our brothers in a time of need. Mike will also say a few words in memory of the brother.
I'm short of this one. Because I think you killed it. I want to say something about Yvonne's family here. Got a lot of focus on Carl's family. I want to say something about Yvonne's family, just extemporaneous here. Yvonne, I love her. You gave us such a gift, such a powerful gift. And the things you contributed in her earliest childhood to bringing us to this point so that we could have her joy, her inspiration, her wisdom. Thank you very much to her family. I want a big embrace. She was a deep thinking friend and a loving family member that allowed us to both live in the moment and to help us to be the best version of ourselves. Liz, my partner, my wife, I was blown away by Yvonne, who had an instinctive wisdom about children and was quick with the word to meet their needs and their potential. And she embraced others without judgment and was curious to know what might make them tick. And I can say at first encounter Liz and with Yvonne, it wasn't 100% matchmaking, but once Liz and Yvonne had more than 3 seconds together, it was powerful and something that has been a foundation and a foundational experience for our family to this day. She did want us to all be the best version of ourselves. And then if we fell short, she was there to encourage and help us to get back on track.
With much resilience and insight, she continued to provide advice for all of us. Now, if after all that support we still committed to the error of our views and ways, she would give us a slight whack. A kind whack, but a whack. She was intuitive, and she knew what motivated and inspired each one of us. She was definitely true to herself and true to how she experienced each one of us as we were able to spend time with her. She wanted us to find meaning in our lives, and we say l'chaim, or carpe diem, carpe diem, seize the day. That was, with great power and inspiration, was what drove Yvonne. She had a spiritual nature to herself, but she also was very practical. Carpe diem, l'chaim, seize the day. Well, because of her, we have carpe diem with a purpose, carpe diem with an edge, carpe diem with our hearts and our hands and embracing. Last of all, I want to make sure we have some time with Carl, and this is a really hard one. We want to ensure to make sure that we have this time to share with you powerfully. Your friendship together has been truly a model for how we can live in the 21st century as a husband and wife, including being a business partner, an extraordinary relationship. It could spend so much time together and be so intricately bound, and yet give each other the space to grow as individual human beings, and yet being together as one, much greater. The sum of the parts, the power and impact of your lives, much greater than the sum of the parts, far beyond it. Now, let's face it. You're probably the double. She was the triple. Let's face it. But much greater than the sum of the parts. And we want to, as we go forth from here, we want to be intricately and intimately bonded to you, inspiring and encourage you. Know that we are with you, and that our realistic, wise, giving, loving, never to be forgotten bond with us. Thank you, God. Thank you.
Another child of the Friedmans, Chuck's daughter, my second son, will offer another reading.
Jess, I'm honored to be able to speak today. Thank you. This afternoon I'm going to read the poem Life Well Lived. A life well lived is a precious gift of hope and strength and grace from someone who has made our world a brighter, better place. It's filled with moments, sweet and sad, with smiles, sometimes tears, with friendships formed and good times shared, and laughter through the years. A life well lived is a legacy of joy and pride and pleasure, a living, lasting memory our grateful hearts will treasure. Thank you.
That's a great job. Just remember, I taught him everything he knows. There's one person here who can legitimately claim to know Yvonne the longest. Jeff Feidelberg, who we all now affectionately call Uncle Mr. Jeff. Get that story later. Is Yvonne's brother. Jeff will remember and help us to know Yvonne as a devoted sister. He has written his remembrance, and his son Xander will share it with us.
My name is Xander Feidelberg, and I'm reading this tribute to my Aunt Yvonne on behalf of my dad, Jeffrey Feidelberg. My sister Yvonne Catherine Margaret Feidelberg Friedman was a force in my life. In fact, she was a force in many people's lives. As many of you know, she was a take-charge person. She was a constant in my life, there when I was born, and supposed to be there forever. She was named after her two grandmothers, Catherine and Margaret, neither of whom she met, as they had died long before she was born. Yvonne was just a name our parents liked. She was the first to be born on American soil, as our parents had emigrated from England just a few years earlier, where they had spent much of World War II and several years thereafter, having escaped the horrors of Nazi Germany as young teens. Yvonne was as conscientious a person as I have ever known. She was a righteous person. In all those years, she never missed a birthday or special occasion. Never. Her cards and the gifts always arrived on time, and I mean always on time, never late. Just 2 days before her passing, flowers arrived from my wife Susan, from Yvonne and family, and of course they arrived on September 18th, precisely the right day. I spoke to Yvonne Friedman 2 to 3 times per week. She liked to remind me constantly that I was her little brother. I knew she was in a feisty mood when she greeted me by saying, "Yo, little brother." When you lose someone you love and care about, so many thoughts and memories spiral through your brain. When Yvonne was 8 years old, she got in trouble for shoplifting. As legend has it, her much older friendly neighbor, her niece, 12 at the time, put her up to it. Together they stole a toy purse from ShopRite. Immediately upon returning home with the purse, she told our mother, who was none too pleased. When our father came home a few hours later, he took her to the store and had her return the purse and apologize to the store manager. That was the first and last bad thing Yvonne ever did. Yvonne was born in East Orange General Hospital and spent 13 years in Newark, New Jersey at 57 Brokaw Avenue. She was a Jersey girl, taking both her first and last breaths in the Garden State. We lived in the same small apartment building that Uncle Hines and Aunt Lizzie lived in. They had sponsored our parents to immigrate to America. Our parents' divorce hurt Yvonne deeply. She was just 10. I can remember it clearly when she came into my room one night crying to tell me that Hans and Stephanie, also known as Oma, were getting divorced. Mom ended up marrying Rudy Moss, a man who we knew from their circle of friends and who was as wonderful a human being as has ever existed on the face of this planet. Our stepfather was also German. He was a fascinating man, quite thoughtful and gentle, yet a hardened man, probably a result of the years spent in concentration camps, namely Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen. No one was going to replace Yvonne's dad, but Rudy made Oma very happy, and Yvonne really liked that. A few months after their marriage, we moved to the Big Apple, specifically 452 Fort Washington Avenue, apartment 61, in Washington Heights, at the intersection of 181st Street and Fort Washington Avenue. The timing was good as Newark burned to the ground just a few months later. Yvonne had skipped 3rd grade and was a young teen when she entered 9th grade at JHS 115 on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Yvonne always excelled at school and graduated at the top of her class, even though she only attended her junior high for 1 year. There she met her lifelong friend, Jane Weinberg, who was like a sister to her. Yvonne attended George Washington High School, where, as usual, she excelled. She was the valedictorian of her high school class of 1500. As a little bro, I never understood how smart she was, but it finally came into focus as she was called to the stage 12 times for awards, including, of course, for being the valedictorian. She gave the commencement address, which was inspiring. Her quest for high grades came with a price, as she was always a nervous wreck before tests. She strived for 100% all the time, and anything less than that was a disappointment. German language and culture was a constant throughout our lives. Our parents spoke German in the house half of the time, and almost all of their friends were German speaking. Their conversations always reverted to German when they were speaking of something they didn't want the children to hear. However, that didn't last long, as Yvonne just listened and learned the language herself. Our apartments in New Jersey and New York were always filled with the German language and oodles of German pastry. We were poor, but food was never lacking. In fact, everyone in the neighborhood was poor, so no one felt out of place. While in high school and all through college, Yvonne worked at a dress shop in the neighborhood, Ann Taylor Dress Shop. Yvonne had a wicked sense of humor. We were all in Florida at Moma's house when Yvonne decided it was high time to play a practical joke on little bro. Pickles were a constant in our refrigerator. We might be out of milk, but we were never out of pickles. Upon my return from the beach, Yvonne asked me if I wanted a nice glass of lemonade, which I did. So out on the porch came a pitcher of lemonade with a tall glass. She poured a nice tall glass of lemonade, or better said, what was supposed to be lemonade for me. I immediately took a big swig from the glass, only to realize I was drinking pickle brine. She got one hell of a chuckle out of that, and I can say that even though it happened many years ago, she always got a good laugh retelling the story. For those of you thinking that was mean to do, Alma was a reluctant, but nonetheless an accomplice. Yvonne was her mother's daughter in all senses of the word. Alma's nickname for Yvonne was Puppyline, which means little doll. Yvonne always burst into a joyous smile when you called her that. I know there is a framed picture somewhere in her house in Cherry Hill of 3 puppy lines which hung over Yvonne's bed from the day she was born. The picture might not mean much to you, but it meant the world to her. I knew Yvonne longer than anyone else left on this planet, and I can say with certainty that I never heard her curse. Although Yvonne, Carl, and Jessica, and Elena all advised me that there are moments of weakness carefully chosen. Yvonne loved the 5 years of her life spent in Germany with the U.S. Army with the love of her life, Carl. She told her mom and me that she had to be careful because, and I quote, she wanted to eat her way through Germany, referring to all the delicious pastries and strudels that were everywhere in Germany, which had been just treats here. German cooking is inherently heavy on butter, creams, and other calorie-rich ingredients. In 1984, I took the first of 3 trips to Germany to visit Carl and Yvonne. They were fun times. They lived on the economy in Nuremberg, which at the time was West Germany. Yvonne picked me up at the Nuremberg airport. I never really was comfortable with her driving, which was reinforced when I hopped into her car at the airport as we proceeded to her house. She was always a cautious driver who never sped. However, we were on the Autobahn headed to her house in an Audi 5000 when I glanced at the speedometer, which registered both kilometers and miles per hour. When I asked why she was driving 110 miles per hour, all she responded to me was, "That's how one drove on the Autobahn and not to worry." Little bro tightened his seatbelt. The happiest day in Yvonne's life was the day Jessica arrived. How she loved that little baby. What turned out to be so tragic was that when she called to tell me about Jessica Michelle Friedman, I had to tell her that our father had passed away just hours earlier. That was the most heart-wrenching call we ever had. But as Yvonne used to say, one candle blew out to make room for another. She was certainly her mother's daughter. As Susan, my wife, reminded me, just after we learned of Yvonne's passing, Yvonne was a force of nature. She knew what she wanted, or better said, what had to get done, and she took charge to get there. Those of you who knew her knew exactly what I mean. In fact, when Jessica called me on Tuesday night and I told my beloved Susan, my wife, Susan's first reaction was we needed to call Yvonne to ask her what to do. Yvonne would know. I did talk to Yvonne a lot. She always gushed about Lois and David, her next-door neighbors, who she loved dearly. You have no idea how important you guys were to her. Yvonne's second happiest moment was the day Elena arrived. You were her groupie line number 2. By the way, Miss Elena, you hit the jackpot. Never was a child more wanted than you were, Elena. I remember so clearly the first time Aunt Susan and Uncle Mr. Jeff met you in Tacoma, Washington. You literally attached yourself to Aunt Susan. Both you and Jessica brought immense happiness to the Friedman household, and yes, I am Uncle Mr. Jeff, and it was assigned to me by Jessica at the ripe old age of 2. She knew I was her uncle, and she knew you called adults Mr., hence was born Uncle Mr. Jeff. When my son Xander was born in 1996, he spent a lot of time in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, especially when Oma was in town. I would often drop him off and pick him up a few days later. Yvonne and my mother now had a little boy to spoil. Xander always returned home with a new wardrobe, which I can only imagine how much he enjoyed shopping for. Xander always liked talking about his Aunt Yvonne and Uncle Carlo. Carlo just flowed off young Xander's lips, so we all let it be. Edward, son number 2's birth, provided Yvonne with immense joy as well. Another little person to expand her small family. Edward was always welcome at J. Friedman, despite always wanting to be dressed in Naval Academy clothing. Yvonne was incredibly interested in her genealogy. She spent many a day figuring out who was who and who came from where. Regularly, she would call me to tell me that she figured out something. The Feidelbergs come from the Rhine Valley in Germany, and Oma, the Schuffers, come from Berlin via Vienna and Hamburg. Somehow, a Danish sea captain entered the mix, which Yvonne thought was a myth until it was confirmed by one of the ancestry services. Only within the last few months did we learn that Aunt, born in 1942 in a ghetto in Poland, and murdered 2 years later. Gittel Feidelberg. There is a memorial mural of her and the nurse who tried to save her in what was the Lodz ghetto in Poland. The unveiling at the memorial occurred just last week, and Yvonne emailed me the pictures of it just days before her passing. Her penultimate text to me was a picture of her and Carl at Carl's 40th college reunion at West Point. She looked happy. Her final text to me was on Monday at 1:11 p.m., where she said, and I quote, "I want to go to Altona, Berlin, Cologne, and Lodz, all 4 cities holding some significance in Yvonne's quest to understand who came before her." I have one more story to tell about Stan Friedman, Carl's dad, codenamed Tom Seaver, but I think I'll just remind him of that privately. And when we think of Yvonne, we can't leave out Hadassah. She loved that organization and all the good that they do. I knew not to call her between November and Christmas, as a typical answer I would get is, "I can't talk now, I'm wrapping presents at the moment." On Tuesday at 11:28 p.m., I got a call from Jessica, which will be etched in my mind forever. "Uncle Mr. Jeff, it's Jess. She's gone." Yvonne, you were loved by many and will be sorely missed. Your wit, kindness, and caring cannot be replaced. When your candle blew out, there was no one to replace you. The last thing Oma told you was that she wanted to see her mother. I get great comfort knowing that you and Ma are together right now.
Thank you, Uncle Mr. Jeff and Xander. That was very interesting. Katie Stoddard, my daughter, and the adopted little sister to Elena and Jess, will now share a reading.
Thank you, Carlo and Jess, for letting me speak today. This reading is an excerpt from a children's storybook, which teaches children about love and loss. I know none of us are children, but please bear with me as this passage is sweet and no less poignant for adults. No Matter What, by Debbie Gliori. Does love wear out? Said Small. Does it break or bend? Can you fix it? Stick it? Does it mend? Oh, help, said Large. I'm not that clever. I just know I'll love you forever. Small said, but what about when you're dead and gone? Would you love me then? Does love go on? Large held Small snug as they looked out at the night, at the moon in the dark and the stars shining bright. Small, look at the stars, how they shine and glow. Yet some of those stars died a long time ago. Still they shine in the evening skies. Love, like starlight, never dies.
You all know Yvonne, and if you knew Yvonne, then you know that she treasured her daughters, and she was fiercely protective of them. The depths of a mother-daughter relationship can sometimes be unfathomable. Yvonne's love for Elena and Jessica was deep and unconditional. Elena, are you ready to come share something?
Hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Yvonne's youngest daughter, Elena. Before I begin, I would like to thank everybody for all the love and support you've shown my dad, my sister Jessica, and myself. This morning, my fiance showed me a small quote, and he said, I saw this and it reminded me of your mother. And it says, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? By Martin Luther King Jr. One of my very first memories of my mother was us walking in a parking lot into a store. At a young age, I always worried about getting lost from one of my parents. This day, I had expressed that fear and said, Mom, what if I get lost? She answered, whenever you are lost, I will always find you. Well, I'm very lost right now, and I really hope that she can find me. When I think back to the story of my life, I immediately think about how my mom explained to me that I was adopted and what that meant. From a young age, she instilled in me that being different from the other kids in this way was very important and it mattered. She taught me to celebrate our unique family dynamic and our bond. From those young moments throughout my life, I have always been proud to be adopted. But more than that, I was always proud to be hers. Throughout the phases of my life, I saw so many layers of my mom and the depths of those layers. I noticed her intelligence, patience, grace, thoughtfulness, devotion, attention to detail, beauty, warm heart, and selflessness. Throughout my life, she fiercely loved me in all of my forms during my struggles, my grief, my heartbreak, my confusion, joy, pride, any celebration, and all my triumphs. I felt unworthy to be my mother's daughter. I always felt I could never measure up to her, and I felt if I couldn't do that, then how will I ever make her proud? As I had my ups and downs in my life, Mom always made sure in her very special ways to show me that she was proud of me and that I was loved. As I matured, I started to wonder who my mother was before she was a mom and a wife. Over time, a shift happened, and my mom became one of my best friends. I saw her in all of her forms, not just Mom, and every day I was constantly in awe of her. She was so much that I always wanted to be. Sometime during my 20s, nurture versus nature became a concept I felt very connected to. Looking back now, I have inherited so much from my mother. Little versions of her love language that gave me warmth in my heart. I now show and replicate a plethora of her tendencies to those I love and care about. I know I will never fully live up to who my mother was, because she was truly untouchable, but I will do my best to carry the legacy of my mom. My mom will always be the place that I come from. She will always be my first home. Forever she will be the map guiding me through life. So, Mom, I refuse to say goodbye to you because I promise you will always find me. And until you do, I'll find you in everything I do. When I become a wife and when I become a mother, my heart will ache for you, but I will find you. I carry your heart with me. I carry it in my heart. I'm never without it. Anywhere I go, you go. Thank you for giving me a life that has been magical. Thank you for all the sacrifices I knew about and the ones that I never did. Thank you for your devotion. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for your strength. And thank you for becoming my friend. I love you every day deeply until we meet in the next life. I'll miss you every second, and I hope I get to make you proud. I love you, Mommy, Brown to Brown, forever.
Yvonne became a mother when she and Carl embraced Jessica into their family 35 years ago. Jessica was, and Carl is, tremendously proud of the wonderful young women that their daughters have become. Jessica, will you share with us?
Thank you everyone for being here today. To see you all here just shows how much of an amazing woman my mother was, all the lives that she has touched. My mom taught me patience and understanding that the world is so much bigger than what is around me. She taught me to be me, even if she didn't like my haircut. Still won't. We are going to be lost for a while. I'm not going to lie. You were the glue of this family. We may have come a little unstuck here and there, but we will grow stronger together. I love you all.
Rob Fleming is one more of the B1 brothers from our days at West Point. He is a very close friend, part of the extended family that Carl and Yvonne collected. Rob will offer our last reading.
She is Gone by David Harkins. You can shed tears that she is gone, or you can smile because she has lived. You can close your eyes and pray that she will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that she has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see her. Or you can be full of love that you have shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday. Or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember her and only that she is gone. Or you can cherish her memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back. Or you can do what she would want, to smile, open your eyes, love, and go on. Thank you.
I've known Carl since he was 18 years old. And since we share the same birthday, he's like my 3 hours older, but slightly less attractive twin brother. He and his daughters are truly family. I cannot comprehend the depths of their pain in this moment. Carl will offer us a eulogy to his wife, Yvonne.
This is a love letter to my queen, Lady Yvonne. And I call it Words Cannot Express. My love, words cannot express what I felt that day in 1978 when we first met. I was a new cadet, a plebe, at West Point, going through the toughest experience in my young life, Beast Barracks. In a world where they cut my hair, took my clothes, yelled at me every time I blinked, I needed a place to find solace and a little respite. There was this tiny Jewish community up at West Point that held Friday night services in a chemistry lecture room at Bartlett Hall. You were a part of that small community and welcomed me with a beautiful smile, open arms, and a warmth and friendship that made everything else in my life tolerable. How I couldn't wait for every Friday night to arrive. But not only me, all my friends and classmates couldn't wait either. Flam and Dino, Bose and Bibbs, Pear and Mo, and everyone else in B1 couldn't wait till I came back home from services with the Jewish food. And remember how I used to bring them to services too? And how you welcomed all of them as well? Honey, they're all here today, 44 years later. My B1 brothers. My family and the best uncles to Jessica and Elena that we could have ever hoped for. Words cannot express how what started as a deep friendship turned into a great love. With your long brown hair, your beautiful eyes, your enticing smile, I was smitten. How you and I would sneak kisses in the back of that science room turned Jewish chapel, and sometimes a little bit more. How sometimes when you drove in from Highland Falls to pick me up at the barracks, you smoked a cigarette on the way up and popped in a breath mint. I was so in love, I didn't even know you smoked until my senior year. Words cannot express the happiness and excitement I felt when you agreed to marry me in 1983 and to share our lives together. Remember how I flew back from Germany so we could get married within a few days? And because as a second lieutenant, basically the low man on the totem pole, I insisted I was vital to my unit's mission, and I had to get back right away. You've always said we never had a honeymoon, and I've always responded, hey, I took you on a 5-year European honeymoon. Really? No honeymoon? And of course you roll your eyes and say, some vacation. Words cannot express how proud I was to bring you to our new home in Bamberg, Germany, when you arrived later that summer on July 4th. I had picked out that apartment below Herr Sauer's farm in the little village of Rostov on Forst. Remember how proud I was to show you the apartment that I had picked out? And of course, the first thing you saw was the previous tenant's pubic hair in the bathroom. I knew at that moment my standards were going to have to be seriously elevated. I don't think I've been in charge of anything in our lives ever since. And remember how later that day I took you to our first date as a married couple? We went to the Post Theater and watched Scarface with Al Pacino. What a romantic evening. Remember that first Christmas together in Germany where we had Bose and Pear and Pefs over? What a beautiful home and a beautiful holiday you created for me and three of my closest friends. Your warmth and just knowing the exact right thing to do with every touch has always been so special for me, our daughters, our friends, everyone who knows you. Words cannot express the beauty of our lives in Germany over the next 5 years. Moving to Niederdorf, right outside of Nuremberg, where we were the only Americans in the town. You speaking English like a native, and me struggling to keep up, you fit in perfectly. Words cannot express how proud I was to be known as the husband of the chief of the Family Support Division. The work you did in building 7 state-of-the-art child care centers, the programs you started at Army Community Services, the hundreds of soldiers and civilians you led with your steely nerve, your steadfast resolve, and your care and love were amazing. And the impact you had on the soldiers and family members of this, the 4th largest military community outside of the U.S., was incredible. But most importantly, from my time in Germany, our time in Germany, words cannot express how beautiful an experience it was to bring Jessica and Michelle into our lives. Do you remember driving through that blizzard 7 hours up to Bremerhaven to adopt the little baby girl at the American hospital there? She had just been born, and even though the German law stated that we had to wait 8 weeks from the time a baby is born until that baby could be adopted, the authorities were so sure that the birth parents were set on relinquishing their rights that they made an exception. Remember how when holding that baby, your instincts were to reject her. Every fiber of your being told you this was not your child. I was just a dumb lieutenant that could fall in love with any child. But your intuition and your instinct is always on target. You knew she wasn't ours. And sure enough, 5 days later, Frau Schmidt came to Nuremberg to pick her back up. The parents had changed their minds. I was devastated, but you knew. Remember, that was when Jessica was born. And 8 weeks later, we took the drive to Würzburg and picked up our beautiful, precious baby girl. And it was love at first sight for all of us. I'd like to say I never questioned your intuition again, but that's not true. What I will say is your intuition was and is always right. And as much as I hate to admit it, I've learned to accept that, and from now on, I will always embrace it. What would Yvonne's intuition tell her? What would her instinct be? Honey, that's going to be my mantra from now on. Words cannot express what it was like to start our lives together in 1988 at Fort Lewis, Washington, just south of Seattle. The wonderful home you made for us, the Thanksgiving on the beach in Hawaii with the Flemings, enjoying Disneyland through a 3-year-old's eyes. What beautiful memories you created for us. And most memorable of all was that Friday in the spring of 1990, when we came home from a dining in at division headquarters to watch the 2020 program where they followed that woman from Detroit who was attempting to adopt a baby in Romania. Without hesitation, you looked at me and said, "You gotta go, and you gotta go now." I said, "Me? Alone? I can't even pick out a candle. You expect me to pick out a baby?" But you trusted me. You had faith in me. Words cannot express the confidence that gave me to drop everything, head to Europe 3 days later, and after one more trip to Bucharest in the fall, bring home our precious and beautiful Elena Nicole. Of course, you didn't trust me that much. There's trust and verify, and there's trust the Yvonne way. Do you remember that you created 5 plastic baggies with a dress, matching hairpin, matching socks, etc.? So I had plenty of changes of clothes for Lanykins. You clearly weren't going to trust me with picking out the right clothes for her to wear on the way home. And because we were flying from Bucharest to Frankfurt to New York to San Francisco to Seattle, of course you knew exactly what I would need to make it the whole way. Me, now a dumb captain, flying halfway around the world with a little baby, what could possibly go wrong? Do you remember how on that last leg the stewardesses got all the passengers off of the plane first so they could all watch you and Jessica meet the newest member of our family for the first time? Words cannot express the joy, the love, and the immense relief I had when I could hand this kid over to you. Words cannot express the warmth, love, and happiness and care you gave to build up our home in Cherry Hill. What incredible memories, raising the kids, school activities, choosing who to get to see Jessica's soccer games, which were super competitive and fun, and who would be forced to watch Elena's games. Not so much. Those Friedman starter monthly visits back and forth between here and Virginia, our epic trip with everybody from West Point to the Outer Banks, visiting with Oma in Florida, our version of the European vacation, in which I almost got us all jailed trying to take the channel from France to England. Of course, as you naturally do, you took charge and smoothed everything over. Words cannot express the pride I feel about your leadership of Hadassah. I know I make fun of it sometimes, well, maybe more than sometimes, but I truly believe that you are the glue that keeps this 1,400-member volunteer force together, and which has done so much to advance medical services and technology in America, Israel, and around the world. Words cannot express how comforting it is to have been your partner, not only in life, but in business. I'm not sure I can do what I do without you doing what you do. I love working with you because we complement each other so well. Of course, it can be a little frustrating when I'm doing my thing on the phone and you're making comments in the background. But honey, I take that any day of the week to have you by my side. Words cannot express the wonder and comfort you have made me feel about our lives these last several years, working literally side by side since COVID from home. Our weekly dinners with Lois and David, our wonderful trips with them, our beautiful relationship with the Budmans, West Point football weekends, tailgating up at school with Kathy and Pear and Jim and Colleen, river cruises, hot air balloon rides in New Mexico, and on and on. But most especially, watching our 2 beautiful daughters finding partners of their own. I know without hesitation, honey, that they're going to be strong, confident women that they are because of the models that you set. My love, words cannot express how deeply and unconsolably I've missed you. I'm only comforted by the amazing outpouring of love and support from our families. Those that we grew up with, and most importantly, those that we've created with our lives together. Our West Point and Army family, our Hadassah family, our Cherry Hill family, and our client family. Everyone feels your presence, your wisdom, your strength, and your love, and they all love you back. Babe, please know that Jessica and Elena will be just fine. Not just fine, actually, they'll be great. You've given them the tools and the strength to live their lives in a way that will always make you proud. I know that you're with Oma, and that she's comforting you like only Oma can. And I know that I'm not going to be okay for a very long time. But I also know that I know this is a long story, this journey of ours, with many chapters. And as much as I know you're watching us, I can't wait to find the words to express to you what comes next. Tell Oma hi for us. Don't give her too hard a time. And save the space for me, my love. I'm with you always. I love you. Carlos Banana.
We'll close out service this afternoon with the traditional Jewish prayer, the Kaddish, led by Yvonne's brother, Uncle Nick.
We will rise, that can rise and say Kaddish together.
Thank you. Please be seated. Before we depart, I want to mention that Yvonne absolutely loved flowers and beautiful things, and she would be completely blown away and stunned by the outpouring of generosity in the form of food being brought to their home. Carl is unbelievably grateful for that, and I'm 5 pounds heavier. 5 pounds heavier than last week because of that. But Yvonne also loved the charity that she helped to lead. Instead of more food and flowers, please consider a memorial donation to the cause that she was passionate about, Hadassah. There's a link that you can find on the Platte Memorial Chapels. Hamakom Yanahem etchem b'toch sha'ar avalei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God console you among the other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Thank you all for attending, and I wish you a safe journey home.
Folks in this room, forget to head to work on.